And if you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, I'd love it if you click that button. Saw this online for $44.90 and I thought, you know what, we can do this a lot cheaper. So there's the items you're going to need: some Mod Podge, a jar, some black paint, and that printable there is a free printable. I will have the link down below in my description box. And I'm showing you how, this is tissue paper, and I'm showing you how I just taped it on top of computer paper. It was that simple, and it goes through the printer just fine. So far I've had really good luck with it. And if there is a little ink splotches here and there, I don't worry about it, because usually my stuff is kind of distressed, so you don't notice it anyway. Or you could literally tear off that ink blob and it's so thin no one would notice, if that is a concern for you. So far I've been really pleased with this method. And I'm going to take the Mod Podge now and paint this jar, and I will be painting the whole jar because the black paint is acrylic and I want that to be able to stick down onto something. So a lot of you know this trick already. You paint your glass with Mod Podge and that gives it a nice surface for a cheap acrylic paint to stick on. So that's what we're doing right now. And I'm showing you here how simple it is to get the wrinkles out when you work with tissue paper too. I am lightly rubbing a dry finger over this, just lightly, and every single wrinkle just flattens down immediately. There's no wrinkles anywhere. And if there, well, I shouldn't say no, because if you really look close with like a magnifying glass or something, you can see some wrinkles, but I mean, it's so minuscule that it is such a great method to get an image on. I think I'm going to be using this more often than computer paper for sure. So now I'm just taking the black acrylic paint and I'm going to go ahead and give this jar one coat of black paint. And if you noticed in the photo of the original piece that we're duping today, it has twine wrapped around the top. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. I'm going to go ahead and put a little, or rather me, I'm going to go ahead and put a dot of hot glue, and we're going to wrap this up with twine. So something that really excited me with this DIY that caught me off guard is if you have your jar near sunlight, it doesn't have to be direct sunlight, it illuminates beautifully, and I show it in one of the final photos in the final reveal. You'll see it in a minute. And now I'm just taking some of this gingham plaid ribbon, making a simple bow. It was just a loop glued together with more of the ribbon in the center wrapped around it. And I'm going to glue it down just for a little extra embellishment on top of this jar. And then I'm taking some fairy lights. If you're interested in the ones I'm using, they're down below in the description box. There will be a link. They're kind of nice and golden, and they're perfect for autumn. Of course, what would the season be without a coffee can craft? Here's a free printable I designed, and it's down below in my description box if you'd like to print it up. And of course, I didn't forget you coffee lovers. I made one for you too. This is a coffee can from Walmart. As far as I know, this is their store brand, so it should be available to everyone who lives by a Walmart. Here is the paint I used. It's a paint primer mix. So I took it outside, gave it one coat, let it dry for about 3 hours. It was in the evening, so it was colder temperature, so it was very dry. I noticed spray paint dries better when it's cold. And then I'm just going to give it one coat of the orange acrylic paint from Dollar Tree. These are those little styrofoam things that come inside packages. I don't know what they're called, but I thought, you know, you never know if you're going to need this, something like this for crafting. So I kept mine, and I'm using it now to start my polka dots on this can. I start doing the back side before I put the front of the image on, because I didn't want to mess up it takes a long time sometimes for Mod Podge to dry. So I didn't want it to be tacky where my finger ruined it from holding it and trying to put the polka dots on. So I started with the back side of this, and I do have to use a brush to make more perfect circles and to touch up the center because there's a little bit of air bubbles in it from tapping up and down with that foam piece. And now I'm taking some Mod Podge and we're going to start gluing that front label down. Now this time I do a really thin, thorough coat of Mod Podge. I didn't go Mod Podge happy, although it didn't make too much of a difference the last time I did that. It's just you have to deal with more wrinkles, so definitely less is better. And you just saw me spray the back of that paper with a little bit of water. That's because the sponge I normally use to press my imagery down isn't as wet as I want it to be, so that's another quick way to get your paper wet. I was in the middle of my project and I didn't want to get up and leave it to go wet the sponge, so I did the little water bottle trick instead. But you do have to be careful with that because it can make your ink run. You're just adding more moisture to that print. You can spray the back of your imagery with a clear varnish. If you're not worried about it yellowing, you can do it with hairspray. It might yellow after a few years, just that's a heads up. And here's a very quick sped up tutorial of the lid I'm going to use for this coffee can. If you'd like to see it in slower detail with more instruction, I will go ahead and link that video down below in my description box, and you'll also see it as a card during this part too, so you can click on that in the upper right hand corner. But this is the lid that I'm going to use, and I made it to look kind of like the top of a pumpkin. So and anyway, I take a black painter's pen and I go ahead and go around all of these circles because I do want more perfection. I mean, you definitely could make them where they're, like I said before, kind of not perfect. That would still look cute, but that wasn't the look I wanted to go for. And I made a raffia bow this year. We're going to glue it on top, and that's it. I always love these coffee can crafts. They're some of my favorites, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too. For this craft, I'm using a wooden Dollar Tree pumpkin and the Dollar Tree little plastic fake wrought iron fence there. You can actually get that at Home Depot too, and Lowe's. I didn't know that, but it's a little bit more expensive. I think you get 12 for $19.99, so it's a little more expensive, but if you're desperate, it's good to know. And I'm just giving it a quick coat of the Dollar Tree orange acrylic paint again, and I'm using the same exact form. I bought like 4 of these wooden pumpkins because I think they're so cute and I have some good ideas. But I'm using it to make those little lines on the pumpkin. They're great templates for that. And then I'm just using a straight ruler to do the center line. Using some apple barrel paint in the color of burnt umber, I'm going to go ahead and paint a stem. Here you'll see me wiping most of the paint off the brush, and the paint on the stem has dried just a little bit. You know, it's not slopping wet, and I just kind of, I don't know if you see I'm dry brushing it downwards where I kind of missed it, and it softens up that line and blurs it. It makes it look more like a real pumpkin stem, so that's a nice little trick. And then using the same method with my brush, I just go around the edge of this little pumpkin to give him a little extra dimension and like a nice little frame just to make him pop a little bit more. And I like that softness. It almost looks like fur on the edge of him. I just think that looks really, really nice. And I did write the words trick or treat on the front of this pumpkin in pencil. You're just seeing the tail end of it here where I'm doing the final T, and I used a ruler this time to help me out. It came out cute. And I'm going to take a brown Sharpie and trace those little lines I made earlier on the pumpkin. And then after that, I'm going to use a paintbrush to paint the word or the words trick or treat. I always opt for the brush when I want the words to look kind of rough or more amateur, I guess, more homemade. And in this particular case, I'm kind of making the edges, wherever I stop my brush stroke, I kind of fade it off so it looks like the words are not, they do it to make words look creepy, but it almost looks like it's melting like wax, or, you know, if you ran water on the paint and it started dripping off, it's supposed to have that look. I'm trying to anyway. Here's a technique I showed last year and I got so much positive feedback that I thought I'd better show it up close again. I'm using some sharp tweezers. They are the really pointy ones, but you can use any sharp tool that you have, and I'm scratching into the stem to make it look more realistic. This is a great method for that. And now comes time to start cutting up this little fence, and I start by cutting off the bottom pieces, and of course eventually we get to this part here where I have two separate pieces, and I'm going to go ahead and glue those together. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my pumpkin and glue him down. And I'm making this for my daughter's house. It is going to be outside on their door, so I am reinforcing it on the back with lots of hot glue. And now comes time for the messy bow. I love the messy bow, and they are absolutely perfect for Halloween. And I'm just taking different ribbon that I think goes good with the theme of Halloween and putting them together. And the top one's going to be a loop. So I did the messy bow for the bottom 3 ribbons, and then I did a loop for the top ribbon. Now I'm just tying it in the center, and then you just kind of pull everything apart and make your bow look the way you want it to. You do, you know, here I am, I'm just kind of fluffing it out. And the nice thing I like about the messy bows, if you make a boo-boo, you'll see it in a minute here, you can add extra ribbon in between. It's no big deal because they're not loops. So I'm just trimming the pieces that were hanging, but here I go. I'm taking that little extra piece there, no one will ever know, and I'm just sticking it in between the other ribbon because it's not quite, you know, the colors aren't separated enough. I wanted them to definitely have variety in between each layer, and I do that on both sides and just add a little extra ribbon in there. And then I add some fall leaves on the top, and now I'm taking a little yellow flower from the Dollar Tree in their fall section. I'm going to glue that at the top for a pop of color and to cover where that leaf didn't quite go all the way under the bow. And that's what we have for the top so far. Now here's the thing with this craft, and it was driving me crazy. When you cut these in half, the other side is so thin compared to the original because obviously it's half. And I did not like that. I just thought it looked cheap and flimsy. So I'm going ahead and cutting those off. And also I thought, you know, it didn't look spooky enough. To me, it almost gave off more of the garden vibe. I wanted it to definitely give off like the wrought iron fence around a graveyard vibe. So I thought these have got to go, and it definitely helps. When I was done, I realized that looks like a big stem on the pumpkin. Wouldn't that be cute if you didn't have the bottom part? So if you don't have the full fence, you could definitely use just 2 of these and make like a big stem on the top of the pumpkin and decorate it. I thought that looked awesome. You could even use a bigger pumpkin. That would be a totally cute door decor piece. And now I'm using 4 strands from the Dollar Tree hula skirt. I twisted them around and around, and I'm tying them on the back to be my hanger. But I just thought this was such a simple, cute statement piece for Halloween. For this craft, you're going to need one of these Dollar Tree Wicked Magical signs, and you're going to need some straw from a broom. Now I'm using this broom from the Dollar Tree and some bamboo I found at my local beach. You can use an old stick or anything you can find around your yard or in a park, and an old broom if you want as well. I'd give it a wash first, but any kind of straw will work. Where I live, we're still pretty stocked from things because people just aren't shopping like they used to, so they still have these brooms in my Dollar Trees. But as you can see, I tore the scarecrow off, I tore the leaves off, and I picked the glue off. And if there's some glue you can't get off, I just threw that one little straw piece away there because I couldn't get that clump off. And then I cut it in half to make it thicker. So we're going to be making a vintage witch broom here. I've always wanted to make one of these, you guys. And we're starting off by taking some hot glue and just gluing some straw around this stick. Now this is just to make sure that the stick is covered all the way around. It doesn't have to be a really thick layer. It can be a nice thin layer, but you just want to make sure that you're going to conceal the bottom end of that stick so that if there's some peekaboo areas, you won't see the stick through. So we're just adding a generous amount of glue, and then we're just going to stick some straw down, and I'm not worried if the top pieces stick. I'm just putting enough there so that I don't burn my finger. So whatever falls off is just fine, but the object is just to cover the entire stick. Once you have that all done, you're just going to grab the rest of the straw and try your best to evenly distribute it around the broom. It doesn't have to be perfect, and to be honest, because one side of it is going to be facing the wall, I kind of, thought maybe I should have focused with one side being a little thicker than the other. But anyway, it turned out super, super cute. But if you don't have enough straw, don't worry too much about it, because the back side is going to face the wall. It's a wall hanging, so just focus on the front part that everybody will see. And now I'm just using some Dollar Tree twine, and I'm going to wrap it around really tight. First I tie it on there as tight as I possibly can, but I can't get it as tight as I want it to be, I guess. Maybe if someone was in the room and I asked them to hold the finger there and push down, but I didn't have that going on, so I just tied it as tight as I could, and then I used the wrap to make it super, super tight. So I was pulling as I was wrapping. It turns out that this is all you need to hold it on. It holds on just fine. I mean, I don't think you could sweep the floor with it, but it does hold on just fine for a decor piece. Any loose pieces like this that you see, just go ahead and pick them up and tuck them back down under that twine, and you're going to give it a nice little trim at the bottom and at the top, just to even it out a little bit. Now I didn't want to do it perfectly even. You can if you want to, but I wanted mine to look rustic and vintage, so I left mine a little uneven at the top, and that's it. I do end up adding a little bit more twine detail, I guess, at the end, but we're moving on to the sign for now. And I'm going to use my water-based acrylic stain. I love that stuff. It's odorless, and if you're interested, it's down below in my description box. There's a link that will take you right to it on Amazon, so you can see the color that I use. But I add a little bit of water to it. Now, I've never done that before, and I wasn't sure it was going to work, but as you can see, it works brilliantly. And I liked that I had more control about how dark it was, because I thought I can always add more coats. I didn't want to make it too dark, and that stain, when it's raw wood, does tend to go on very, very dark. So, I've said it before, on a shiny surface, a little bit goes a long way. And with wood, you can control it apparently by adding water. A little bit will go a long way, because you can let your first coat dry and then add a second coat and gradually build up to the color that you'd like. But I do the front and the back, and I think it comes up so pretty. You really see the wood grain, and that's how it dries. Now, I do have a rustic farmhouse setting in my home. That's my decor style, so we're sticking with that theme for Halloween here, even though it's vintage. I do want it to blend in with the rest of my decor, and I decide, because this is all just monotone, it's one color, that I'm going to go ahead and just take a permanent marker. This is a Dollar Tree permanent marker, and darken up the edges there and antique them using the marker. It works great just to make the letters pop a little bit more so you can see them. And now I'm taking a raffia bow, and I'm going to add that to the witch's hat. Now, I'd like some feedback, you guys. My husband said no, but I was wondering, should I have taken some black paint and watered it down and done like a black wash on the witch's hat. I can still do that, and I just wanted some opinions if I should do that, because I thought you can't really see the witch's hat, but he loves it just the way it is. Now, we're going to be putting that nicer broom on the bottom where the cheesy broom is, so you have to cut that little end off there because it does show, but you're going to want to leave the stick part, most of that stick part there, because that's going to be the base that you're going to glue your broom down onto. And of course, you don't have to have the wicked sign. You can always just make the witch's broom if you want, and hang it on the wall, or you can use a little piece of wood and write the word wicked on it and hang it off the broom. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can do this DIY for Halloween. It's just, I loved this sign when I saw it at the Dollar Tree. I thought it was so cute. And now I'm just tying some more twine on, because the other twine had like a plastic thing on that looked too modern, and I was adding a little bit of hot glue to make sure the knot doesn't untie. And as you can see, I wrapped some twine at the top of the broomstick as well, just for a little more accent, I guess. It looked a little bit too plain. And there you have it. That's it. It was a super simple DIY, but it looks so high-end and expensive, and it's so cute with my farmhouse decor. It really blends in and just adds to the rustic feel in my house. I love this DIY. I've always wanted one. Next goal on my list is to make a life-size one, and that will probably be next year, but I hope you guys get a chance to try this craft. It was a lot of fun. This is another Dollar Tree cutting board craft. You can use any cutting board, and for those of you that watched the little mini 3-tiered tray decor series, I made a cutting board out of cardboard. You can go back and check that out, because you could certainly make a bigger one. And I just took it outside and spray painted it black. I was inspired by a craft I saw that said Harvest Moon, and I went to look for it. Again, I couldn't find it, but it had a big orange moon, and I just loved the feel of it. And it was distressed with orange paint as well, so I'm trying to recapture that with this DIY. And I go ahead and I take the orange paint and I distress it, and now I'm just adding some Mod Podge on my surface, because I'm going to get it all ready for the next step. So this little cutout that is coming up here, right there, says Witches Please. That is a free link down below in my description box. If you click on it, it will take you to this image, and you can print it up if you want to recreate this yourself. So today I'm going to be using hairspray, you guys, to seal the top of this. I am taking a little black paint here just to soften the edges, but after I'm done, you'll see me show, there I go, I'm showing you that bottle, and I'm just going to mist it here lightly. I often do this with holiday crafts because they're not out very long, they don't get a lot of wear and tear. Most of us just stick it on a mantle or in a hutch or on a tabletop, and this is just a great way to give it that little extra protection so the paint doesn't chip off. It works very similar to a polyacrylic clear spray, and you can make it more durable by applying it in several layers. I've done up to 3 layers before. Just make sure that you let it dry in between each application. And here I'm adding a Dollar Tree bow. I love this polka dotted bow. And I have that orange ribbon on the top. I end up removing that because that just, I don't know, I didn't like it. Maybe I should have left it, but I ended up putting this on my mantle, so I didn't really need the hanger, and I just felt like it made it look too busy. I don't know, I like to kind of stay in the rustic theme, so there I go. Off it goes, and here's what we have. I just think this came up so cute. It's so easy, you guys. It's just a great way to use the Dollar Tree cutting boards or any cheap cutting board that you find if you have a cutting board at home, or a scrap piece of wood. This is a super fun craft, and I love the way it looks, and I love the saying on there too. I think it's super cute and super vintage. These are the towering wooden blocks from the Dollar Tree that come in the pack where there's dark colors and light colors. I actually bought this box by accident because I didn't think I'd have any use for it. But it occurred to me for Halloween, the darker color is probably better because, you know, I used a lot of black in these DIYs. But so anyway, I take out all the dark blocks here, and I'm making 2 even shaped squares. And I'm just taking some more really cute prints I found from free sites and Microsoft, believe it or not. Microsoft clip art. Oh my gosh, I'll leave the link down below for these labels as well as the clip art. Super, super cute stuff. I was shocked. So definitely go there before you print anything out. See if you want to use any of those images instead, because they are great. But I'm just making some super easy, fast 3-tier tray Halloween decor pieces that I can add in the front of my tier tray and the back because they're going to be reversible. I'm going to go ahead and go back and distress the edges of the prints here. I thought I didn't want to do that, but I was looking at them over the last couple of days here in my kitchen. I'm thinking, I want the edges to be distressed. But I promised you guys I would throw out some 3-tier tray decor whenever I could, and I just think this is such a simple, cute way to get festivity on your 3-tier tray with very little effort. I didn't have time to go to the Dollar Tree, so my neighbor Helen here offered to cut up some wood and make me some craft sticks for the next DIY. So first we're going to make this DIY, and then that will lead into the next DIY. So here's the craft sticks, and I chose to use the bottom of a C's chocolate box. That's because they're super sturdy, you guys. For those of you that try C's chocolate, you guys know what I'm talking about. You can use any box you want, and this is also going out to those people who ask me what to do with their extra boxes, because we are getting a lot of Amazon boxes and smaller boxes and just containers in general, because a lot of us are shopping online. So here's another idea, and of course you can always up it and use painter sticks or shims to cover it. Same principle applies, it's just on a larger scale. So I'm just measuring and cutting up my sticks, and I'm going to glue them in there just using hot glue, and I'm going to cover this entire box with wood so that we end up with a wooden box. Here's the water acrylic stain again that I used in my previous DIY, and this DIY I actually did first before that DIY in real life, but this is how I discovered that stain goes on super, super dark, which is why I watered it down last time. If you like it dark, it's fine, but just a word of warning, it does soak into raw wood big time and it goes on quite dark. So we're just going to cover up this entire tray here with the stain and let it dry before we move on to the next step. So originally I had the idea to decorate this tray like this. In case you do want to make this just a tray for Halloween, you can go ahead and put jack-o'-lanterns on it, little candy corns, anything that's Halloween, it would be great. And here's how it comes out, you guys. I think that is so, so pretty. It dried lighter, thankfully, and I do end up taking some black acrylic paint and just touching up with a super tiny brush anywhere where the white box did show, so it just looks old and rustic, and it's going to be great for an all-year-round tray and great for a Halloween tray as well. For this craft, you'll need 3 cans. Now, in my earlier videos, I actually mentioned to try and keep your cans, you guys, because I love to craft with them. I think they are very rustic, naturally rustic, and my husband was raised on a farm. You do actually see cans on a farm, so I think they're great for crafting, especially if it's seasonal stuff that you just want to make every year because you don't have to keep them. But it's a great way to recycle your stuff and enjoy them a little bit before they go into the landfills there or the recyclable. So these images again are from the Microsoft clip art, and again that link will be down below in my description box. They are super cute, and there are a good 30 I think to choose from if you go under the vintage one. And if you just go under plain Halloween images, even more comes up. So they're just really rocking it this year with Halloween images. I was really surprised. So I'm just sealing it up with Mod Podge, using my finger with a bit of water. I dipped my finger in water just to get the wrinkles out, and that's what you end up with. And these are some Dollar Tree florals here. Now I'm actually going to show you how I went about repairing these cotton stems. They were absolutely thrashed when I bought them, but they were the last ones and I just wanted some. So I think the mistake Dollar Tree made, even though these picks are absolutely gorgeous, is they combined them with the pine cones, and the pine cones are really, they snag the cotton and pull on it. So I had a lot of loose cotton that was pulled out all over the place, and the bottom of it had cracked. But surprisingly, with a little bit of hot glue here and there and just squeezing the cotton together and working with it like you can see me doing here, they came up like brand new looking, and they're totally strong. So if you do have some broken ones, don't throw them away. They are very easy to repair. I'm showing you this picture here because this was the Pinterest inspiration, and to be honest, when I get to the Dollar Tree, I'm probably going to buy some vintage looking candy, put a plastic bag in the bottom of the can and just fill the top half with candy instead of florals, because that was the original look I was going for, and I just wanted to show you guys to give you some other ideas. But for this week, we have some florals in them that look really cute too. So I'm going to show you both ways because both ways are an option and both ways look super cute. This DIY is just like stupid easy, you guys, but it's still worth showing to get you inspired. I fell in love with this boo sign from the Dollar Tree because it looks vintage. It's just got that cute bubbly old-fashioned look, the way the letters are written and shaped. And I had about 4 things that I needed to paint black. So instead of doing the long process of painting everything and waiting a long time for it to dry, because when you paint things on, the paint layer is thicker, I just took them all outside and gave them a light coat of black spray paint, and voila, we were done. I brought it back in, and this is really that simple. I am just taking white paint and I'm just, well, you can see what I'm doing. I'm distressing it, but I'm just kind of making it look kind of like I'm trying to maybe imitate cobwebs or just kind of a wild feel because it's supposed to be scary. Anyway, this is how it comes out, and I think it came out totally cute, and it's so easy. So super simple DIY if you have the boo sign from the Dollar Tree. Here's a plastic tray from the Dollar Tree. This is a pretty regular tray. I think that's carried at most Dollar Trees, even the ones that aren't that great. They tend to carry those cheap plastic trays. And if you can't get this exact one, there's usually either the metal fake shiny ones or there's some kind of plastic tray you can buy there usually. And this is one of the items that I took out to spray paint black, and I just did a very light coat. I wasn't concerned if it wasn't covered really heavy because we're going to be painting this to look like faux wood. And just like the previous wood tray that I made, this is for the next DIY, but it's, I'm going to show it first as a separate DIY because it can be used all year round, and it's a little bit more detailed than just a quick, gluing something together or whatever. So first I do the black paint because I love black when you're doing faux wood. In fact, I don't ever think I've shown you how to do this. I've talked about it a lot in my earlier videos, how I love black for when you're making the faux wood because it gives it a depth that if you don't do it, I don't know, I've done it both ways and it seems like it's missing something, like you can tell it's just paint splattered on. But when you do black first and then you go from there and you start adding your browns, I'm working here with first white, then burnt umber, and then territorial beige, and those are all the colors that I use. And I'm doing such a soft dry brushing. I mean, there's hardly any paint on my brush at all. In fact, when I'm done, the whole tray almost feels like super shiny and waxy because there's such thin layers, multiple layers of super thin paint that, and you can see me there using a Kleenex. I'm wiping it as well because when you wipe it, you also get that real kind of blended smooth look. Anyway, this is how I go about making a faux wood if I'm just doing paint only. No stains, no baby wipes, just the well, it's another method, but I think it's a little harder. But it does work and it does come out looking really pretty when you're done. So I just wanted to show you guys how I do this. It's in fast motion, but it took me about 15 minutes. I mean, you do have to take your time because you're just adding such little paint each time you add a layer on, and you just keep playing with it, look at it. It's all by eye, really. You're getting it to where you like it, with every craft, because woods come in all different shades and colors. So as long as you're happy and it's got the grain look and everything, you're good to go. And now I'm going to use my 4K camera, but actually I'm really wanting to show you up close what kind of grain you get when you're using just paint. And you know what, look at that. That's not too bad. Nobody would be able to tell if they came in your home and saw that in your entryway that that's not real wood. So it's a process, but it comes up really cute. And we're going to be using it for our next DIY. For this craft, you're going to need 3 bottles. You can pick your favorite bottles. I chose a maple syrup one, an olive oil one, and a salad dressing one. One of those little leprechaun little cauldrons, I guess, and a ping pong ball. And that little plastic orange thing comes from like a pill set that many Dollar Trees carry. They all screw into each other, 7 of them, and it's where you're supposed to keep your medicines. But I just have some extras on hand, and I'm going to use it to make a faux cork inside the maple syrup little container there. So this is why I tell you guys to keep your trash, because I love to craft and recycle with trash if I can make nice looking things. I don't want it to look junky, but if it comes up cute, especially just for the holidays when you're making something fun and playful that you're only going to use for 1 or 2 seasons, it's so much fun to make it with stuff you already have around the house. So you just take masking tape and you tape that lid on, because it's going to look like an old wrinkly buckled up piece of old wooden cork there that a witch would have. And I glued the ping pong on top of that bottle there, and I took them outside, gave them some black spray paint, and now I'm just painting these 2 little top corks here white, because I'm going to go and make those faux wood, and I'm going to be using the water-based acrylic stain again to do that, because that just works fantastic over white paint. I don't know why, but it just does. Now I'm using the watered down version that I had left over from my previous DIY. It turned out to be a little too watery, so I blew dry as I was painting, and then that worked great. You'll actually see me here put the dryer up there, because see how it's too watery and it's kind of like getting little bubbles and stuff, and I think that won't do. So I get my hair dryer, it's on right now, it's blowing, and you'll see how that suddenly goes away. See it? It works brilliantly. So if you guys have that problem, don't worry about it. Just get a blow dryer out or a heating gun or anything like that so it can dry as you're painting it on. I do about 3 layers on this one. It comes up absolutely gorgeous. It totally looks like wood. And the other one comes up absolutely beautiful too. It just looks like weathered wood. Now I would suggest, if you have a Dollar Tree, or if your Dollar Tree carries those wood rounds, those little like stems, that would also make a great cork. You just cut the top of that bottle off where the cap screws on. Just take a utility knife, cut it off. I did that in a previous video. I think my very first seriously free DIY video, I show you how to do that. And you glue the wooden round on there, and that would also make a great faux cork. So I did it this way and it came up so cute, so it's fine. And I took a little black Sharpie there, went around the base of that cork just to add some shadow so it looks old and kind of hides where the tape meets the plastic as well. It actually hides it perfectly. And now I'm taking a baby wipe and some Territorial Beige from Apple Barrel Paint, and I'm just smearing the paint on this bottle here. But after it's done, I look at it and I think, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and dry brush that color on because I want some more dimension, and you'll see it comes up really, really nice. Just touching up any little tape areas that are showing with a bit of black paint, and there I go with my dry brushing, and you can see it just looks so cute. I was hoping to make this kind of look like an old wooden jar, but if not, then just some old rustic jar either way. And for the other two, I decided to pick some really magical colors. I get a burgundy color, and then I get a nice deep blue color right here that I knew would be so flattering on black, because they just go so well with Halloween and with magic and magical potions. I just love these colors for that reason. Now you'll see here where I add too much blue paint, and I take a tissue and just wipe it off. I'm going to do it right here. And when I wipe it off, I discover that gives a beautiful like blue cloud on the glass to make it look, I forget the name of that glass. Maybe someone can tell me down in the comments that's colored like that. It kind of has like a haze to it, but it's dark. I think there's a name for it, but anyway, it ends up looking like that. So I end up doing that on the entire craft. I end up putting heavier paint and then just going with the tissue and wiping and dabbing and just making it so it's nice and cloudy, so it looks like a dark blue glass. And here I'm just staining the cork, little wine cork that I have, just a little bit more so it's not so light. And I'm using some more of those free labels that I found online, and again, those links will be down below in my description box. They are so cute. They have great Halloween free labels out there, you guys. I had so much fun. And now I'm using a little Mod Podge. I'm going to Mod Podge my labels on. So if you decide to do this craft, I actually blend two labels on there. I mean, one is from one website and the other two is from another one. The gray and white ones on the top I just thought looked really good combined with the brown one, because I wanted that one to be the snail spit or snail saliva. But I wanted it, you know, it was a small label, so I wanted it to take up more room to kind of balance and give some symmetry there on the bottle. So I took those other little strips that said, you know, highly potent, and I forget what the other one says, but it worked out great because it totally came together. When I distress the edge of that beige label, it comes out so good. And this one's the werewolf fur. And there I go. I'm distressing the edge there with a little bit of burnt umber. Doesn't that look good, you guys? It's, oh, there it is. Do not touch, highly potent. It's just so cute. This is my favorite craft. Oh my gosh, I had so much fun making this the whole time. I don't think I've had that much fun in a while, where it's like I'm like a little kid. And I take a little bit of the burnt umber too, and I go around the gray label, which actually gives a totally different color, and I was pleased about that because I like everything to look, you know, different. Like the witch bought these little potions or made them at different times or from different places. There's some more driftwood from my local beach there. I just thought it looked perfect. It looks like something you'd be crushing the herbs with or stirring with. And that's my little tray, you guys, there of magical potions that the witch has. And I love this craft. I mean, this is the Halloween craft of this year. I'm going to keep this probably forever. They are so cute and so real looking and so magical. Talk about childhood. Seriously, so easy to make. You just keep your recyclable bottles, you print up free labels. Again, you don't have to have a Dollar Tree. You can use a ball or other shapes or pieces of wood for corks. Anyone can make this, and that's catnip right there, you guys. So cute. I forgot about that. My cat walked by and got overly excited. I had to switch it out and put parsley there instead. I forgot Mr. Thomas would get excited about that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up. It really does help YouTube notice my channel. For this DIY, you're going to need a witch's boot template, some material of your choice. I'm using an old man's shirt. Oh, wait, my husband wouldn't like that. I'm using an old shirt of a man. Oh, you know what I mean. Anyway, you just cut out that template, you trace it onto your cloth, and then you fold your cloth in half so that the fold side is the back of the boot, and you cut it out so that it opens up like this. So from my years of doing crafts and sewing, I knew that it would be really difficult to stuff this properly up in that upper pointed curled toe area there if I glued it together first and then stuffed the polyfiber fill in there. And I'm just using old stuffing from a pillow. So I go ahead and I stuff it while it's still open, and then I glue it together, and I don't worry if some of the little stuffing is sticking out. As I go, I kind of shove it in there, and if little pieces are sticking out, or even if any glue oozes over, you can trim that off as you go. So here's where I have a big blob of hot glue that went over, and I'm just trimming it off, and I'm going around the entire little witch's boot now to make sure we don't have any odds and ends hanging over the edge. This is a trim that's left over from a table runner I got at Ross a long time ago, and it just started to kind of yellow and look old, and my decor style changed, and I just thought this would be absolutely perfect for the trim on this boot. Some of you who watch my channel may remember the French country video that I did. This was the material, see-through like scarf material that I cut up and used for that mirror that hung, the little Dollar Tree mirror that I hung on the wall backwards, and it had all that soft, beautiful flowing ribbon hanging off of it. This was the trim from that. So when I say look around your house and use what you have, you'd be so surprised what's old and you're ready to give away, and it would be a beautiful crafting supply. Now I'm just using some black paint from Apple Barrel Paint, and these are little spray bottles from the Dollar Tree. I just add some water in till we get it nice and fluid, and I'm going to pour it into the spray bottle. And I'm going to spray this boot black. Now you can do this ahead of time, but this is the Holly way of doing things fast and easy. And I did, you won't, unbelievable when I look back, but I did like over 200 coffee filter roses once for a wedding using this method, and there was like no way I was going to paint 200 coffee filter roses. So I just got a big spray bottle like you use for a garden. I mixed up a nice creamy yellow color, and I sprayed all of the roses because that was the theme of the wedding. It was all like creams, and it was perfect. So you may have noticed that I also spray painted the inside where the stuffing is to make that dark. This little booty dried in about half an hour because I have a vertical basket that I stood it up in with vertical bars, and I put a fan in front of it, and it was bone dry in half an hour. And now I'm just dry brushing black paint. You don't water down this part. You just use regular black paint and dry brush here and there, and you hit the areas where the hot glue oozed out because that will not pick up the color of the paint you spray. Okay, so we need something to stuff in these booties just like we stuff Christmas stockings, and I decide to go ahead and make a little black kitty out of craft sticks. Just using more of the black acrylic paint from Apple Barrel to paint this little guy, and now we're drawing some eyes on him. I'm just going to make them round and really simple. You'll see I just use a white painter pen, and then I'm going to use a black painter pen, and then we're going to make the cutest whiskers ever out of Dollar Tree twine. All you do is wrap the twine around 2 fingers and then tie it in the middle and cut the edges, and voila, you have cute whiskers. I'm really loving how vintage and primitive this little witch boot is coming along. So I decided to take some Spanish moss and put it on the top, and you can see me there pushing my fingers into the polyfiber fill. I did have to break that apart to make a little hole for my little kitten because I couldn't get my cat in there. And then I broke a little bit of the wood off the pick there because it was a little bit too long. It was difficult to get down. And then I took this permanent marker in brown, colored the stem brown, added a little hot glue on top of the pumpkin so I could add some more Spanish moss. And then we're going to take the Walmart twine, which is a really good deal, by the way. If you come across that twine, make sure you pick it up because it just goes forever, and it's a lot thicker than the Dollar Tree, and it is cheaper per yard in the end. And I tied it in a knot in a loop, and we're gluing it on the inside of the booty there so we can hang this up on the wall. And then I decide, lastly but not least, this doesn't quite have enough of the Halloween flair here. This is a witch's boot, so we have to do a little jack-o'-lantern, and I absolutely love the way that this came out. If you had fun today, don't forget to leave me a big thumbs up on this video. It really does help it get seen on YouTube. And until the next time, breathe deep, fret not, and do things that make you happy.